Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Doug is driven to the edge of despair when he learns that Vanessa is not only with Joey but has seemingly surrendered to the idea of building something new with him. The revelation comes to Doug at the worst possible time, during one of his lowest spirals, when alcohol clouds his thoughts and the relentless pull of gambling gnaws at what little control he has left. His voice cracks as he confesses over the phone, offering Vanessa a fragile promise that if she would only agree to begin again, he would quit gambling forever. It is not a casual plea but the last lifeline he can throw across the widening chasm between them. For Doug, the act of laying down his vices means far more than personal sacrifice. It is an acknowledgement that she has always been the anchor to his drifting soul. But instead of warmth, the call shatters him with icy indifference. He hears Joey's voice in the background, lazy and comfortable, as though mocking his vulnerability without needing to speak directly. In that single moment Doug feels his heart implode. He accuses Vanessa with a bitter venom that surprises even himself, telling her that while he lays bare his soul in desperation, she lays bare her body for Joey. The words are cruel, born from both love and rage, but they cut deeper than he realizes. Vanessa demands he stop, her own voice trembling between guilt and anger, yet Doug only pushes further, sealing the fracture with a final scathing remark, "She and Joey deserve each other." Then, with trembling fingers, he ends the call, leaving silence as the only witness to his collapse. The spiral deepens that night as Doug turns back to the tables, wagering everything he has left. Marcel watches closely, not as a friend but as an appointed observer, charged with keeping Joey informed. Joey, comfortable in the private intimacy of Doug's wife, is fully aware of the other man's self-destruction, his downfall serving as entertainment rather than tragedy. Each loss Doug suffers is reported like a scorecard, as if the man's ruin were nothing more than a sporting event. But Doug, even at his lowest, refuses to back away. With desperation fueling him, he pushes all his chips forward in the last game, placing his most personal possession on the line. The watch Vanessa once gave him as a symbol of her belief in him. That watch had once been a reminder of better days, when hope was alive and love uncorrupted. Now it becomes just another stake on the table, another desperate chance to prove he can still turn the tide. And for a brief, flickering moment, it seems fortune smiles on him. He begins to win, gathering chips in a pile that grows higher and higher. Each victory pounds through his chest like the beat of a war drum, a surge of energy against the drowning weight of his failures. He imagines Vanessa's eyes softening, Joey fading into irrelevance, a life reclaimed from the ashes. But just as the dream begins to form, Marcel steps in. His voice is low, almost pitying, as he blocks Doug from taking his winnings. The words are chilling in their calmness, "Where Doug is going, money will not matter." The statement lingers like a curse, heavy with implication. Is it a threat of prison, a violent reprisal, or something even darker? Doug stares at him, confusion mixing with dread, but Marcel offers no clarification. Soon the answer comes. Doug is seized, dragged away from the smoky clamor of the casino floor into the suffocating darkness of the basement. Here, there is no glamour, no glitter of chance, only the brutal reality of captivity. His wrists are bound, his body thrown against the cold stone wall. Marcel's men work methodically, their cruelty not fueled by rage but by duty, as though torture were simply part of the process. The demand is clear: reveal Randy's location. Doug's loyalty is put to the test. Randy had always been more than a friend, was the one person who never judged, who stood beside him even when his choices were reckless. Betraying Randy would mean abandoning the last thread of dignity Doug still possesses. At first, he lies with conviction, swearing he knows nothing. But each denial is met with escalating pain. His hand is forced beneath the edge of a blade, the steel pressing close enough to promise a lifetime of mutilation if he does not speak. Sweat mingles with blood, and Doug's resolve wavers. Finally, broken by agony but desperate to preserve what little loyalty he can, Doug confesses only part of the truth. He admits he once asked Randy for help, but insists Randy refused and that he has no knowledge of where his friend has gone since. It is both a half-truth and a shield, protecting Randy while sparing himself further torment. Marcel is not satisfied. He sees through the cracks in Doug's story, frustration seething beneath his calm exterior. Yet he does not kill Doug. Instead, he devises another path. If Doug cannot or will not reveal Randy, then Doug will become the bait to lure him out. The command is simple but ruthless: contact Randy, arrange a meeting, and deliver him into Marcel's hands. Doug's heart sinks. To obey is to betray the only friend who still believes in him. To resist is to invite further torture, or death. The weight of the choice bears down on him like chains, but in his broken state he sees no escape. With trembling hands, he agrees, the guilt already consuming him. Meanwhile, Vanessa's descent into Joey's arms reaches its point of no return. She slips the wedding ring from her finger, the small circle of gold clinking faintly as it hits the table beside them. The act is symbolic, an unspoken declaration that her marriage to Doug is not merely fractured but ended. Her body moves with Joey's in passion, blind to the fact that every step was orchestrated by him with calculated precision. She does not see how her husband is being brutalized in some dark basement while she embraces another man's touch. The betrayal is complete, not just of vows but of trust, leaving Doug abandoned in every sense, physically beaten, emotionally shattered, spiritually gutted. Randy, far removed from this twisted triangle, lives unaware of the trap tightening around him. His loyalty to Doug had always made him cautious, but when he receives Doug's desperate request to meet, a flicker of concern pierces his instincts. The words in the message sound unlike his friend, stilted, rushed, as if forced. Still, friendship blinds him to suspicion, and he contemplates the meeting, uncertain whether it will bring reconciliation or doom. Doug, trapped in his own torment, rehearses the conversation in his mind. Each imagined exchange with Randy cuts deeper than the last. He wants to shout warnings, to beg forgiveness, to confess the coercion, but he knows Marcel's eyes and ears are everywhere. One misstep and Randy will not only be caught but Doug himself will be slaughtered for defiance. The torment becomes not just physical but existential, a war between loyalty and survival, between friendship and fear. The air in the basement grows heavier each day. Blood, and despair. Doug's body weakens, but his mind races ceaselessly, clawing at impossible escape routes. Sometimes he imagines Vanessa bursting in, regretful and strong, pulling him from captivity. Other times he dreams of Randy sensing the trap and turning it back on Marcel. But when he wakes, there is only the cold stone, the iron grip of restraints, and the smirk of Marcel as he checks on his progress. Marcel himself becomes a looming enigma. To Doug, he is both captor and prophet, speaking in riddles about the futility of money, the inevitability of betrayal, the cost of choices. Marcel is not simply a thug, he is a strategist, a man who sees beyond immediate gain, and that makes him far more dangerous. Each word he delivers to Doug feels carefully chosen, not to break him outright but to erode his spirit piece by piece. And in the shadows, Joey thrives. To Vanessa, he is attentive and passionate, a man who offers comfort where Doug gave only chaos. Yet Joey's satisfaction comes not from love but from conquest. He savors the knowledge that Doug suffers even as he indulges in Vanessa's surrender. To him, the affair is not intimacy but triumph. Vanessa, blinded by her own pain and desire, remains ignorant of how deep the manipulation goes. Thus the stage is set for inevitable collision. Doug, broken and bleeding, becomes the unwilling pawn in Marcel's larger game. Randy, loyal but unsuspecting, edges closer to the snare laid before him. Vanessa abandons her vows in a moment of passion, unaware that her choices fuel the machinery of her husband's destruction. And Marcel, the orchestrator, tightens his grip, drawing every string taut in anticipation of the final pull. Every moment feels like the calm before a storm, each breath a countdown to the moment when loyalty, betrayal, and survival will clash in a crucible of violence and revelation. The gates Doug has been dragged beyond are no longer those of a casino or a marriage but of a darker realm altogether, where love and friendship are gambled as recklessly as money, and where the stakes are nothing less than life itself. Doug's nights in the basement stretch into a blur of pain and restless half-dreams, each hour gnawing at his sense of time and reality. His body aches from the beatings, yet the heavier weight is the choice forced upon him. He cannot escape Marcel's order, lure Randy into the open. Each moment of hesitation is met with threats, and every glimmer of resistance draws the sharp reminder of a blade pressed too close to his skin. When the chance finally comes, the words are short, crafted to seem casual, but his heart hammers as he types. He prays Randy will hear what is not written, that he will feel the warning hidden behind the request. Yet as the message is sent, guilt floods him. Even if Randy suspects something, even if he escapes, Doug has still played a role in Marcel's hunt. Marcel watches silently as Doug sends the message. His eyes narrow, not with suspicion but with the satisfaction of a man who believes he holds the board in his hands. To Marcel, Doug is no longer a man but a piece, a sacrificial pawn meant to draw out a stronger one. He speaks calmly afterward, reminding Doug that betrayal is inevitable, that even loyalty rots when enough pressure is applied. Doug wants to argue, to tell Marcel he does not understand the depth of his bond with Randy, but the words choke in his throat. Meanwhile, Randy reads the message in another part of town. The words feel wrong, lacking the rhythm of Doug's usual tone. Suspicion crawls across his skin, yet loyalty compels him to act. He knows Doug has been spiraling, knows his friend has been beaten down by losses, boosts, and heartbreak. If Doug truly needs him, can he ignore it? Randy weighs the risks, but the thought of abandoning his friend gnaws at him more than the danger. Against his instincts, he prepares for the meeting. Vanessa, on the other hand, begins to feel the first pangs of unease. Joey's charm is intoxicating, his attention soothing, but in quiet moments, shadows creep in. She notices how often Joey asks about Doug's state, about his habits, about the money he's lost. The curiosity feels calculated, not compassionate. And yet, whenever doubts rise, Joey knows how to silence them with touch, with whispered promises of a future free of chaos. She clings to the idea that she has finally found stability, even as her conscience whispers that she has traded vows for lies. Doug, trapped beneath Marcel's thumb, imagines every possible outcome. He knows Randy will come because Randy has never turned his back on him. The thought is both comfort and torment. Doug longs to see his friend one last time, yet he dreads the moment Marcel's trap will spring shut. His body is bruised, but his spirit still flickers with defiance. He tells himself that if an opening comes on, the opening at all, he must find a way to turn this around. Marcel prepares the scene with cold precision. He arranges his men at the meeting point, ensuring every angle is covered. His confidence is palpable, the certainty of a hunter who has already imagined the kill. To him, Randy is just another piece to be moved, another obstacle to be eliminated. The idea that Randy could outthink him never crosses his mind. At the same time, Joey's facade begins to shift. With Vanessa firmly in his grasp, he no longer hides his arrogance. He speaks more openly about Doug's failures, painting himself as the superior man who can give her what Doug never could. Vanessa feels the sting of these words, though she tries to ignore it. A part of her still remembers the man Doug used to be, the one who held her hand through better days. But she buries that memory beneath Joey's promises, convincing herself she has chosen a path that offers security, even if it is built on betrayal. The meeting looms, and Doug feels his nerves fray. Marcel pushes him forward, forcing him to play his part. When Randy finally appears, Doug's chest tightens. His friend looks wary, scanning the shadows, but he steps closer anyway. Doug's eyes plead with him, trying to communicate what words cannot. He wants to scream a warning, but the weight of Marcel's gaze holds his tongue. The air grows tense as Marcel's men close in. Randy senses the shift, the subtle movements in the dark. His instincts sharpen, and he realizes too late that Doug's summons was never safe. Yet in that realization comes clarity. Doug is not betraying him willingly. Randy sees the bruises, the trembling hands, the shame etched across his friend's face. The truth hits him like a blow. Doug is a prisoner, a pawn forced into treachery. What follows is chaos. Marcel steps from the shadows, calm and confident, demanding Randy's surrender. But Randy does not go quietly. He fights with the desperation of a man who knows survival is the only answer. Blows are exchanged, blood is spilled, and the trap Marcel believed was perfect begins to fray at the edges. Doug seizes the distraction, hurling himself at one of Marcel's guards in a reckless attempt to shift the balance. Pain surges through him as fists slam into his body, but for the first time, he feels alive, fighting not for money, not for redemption in Vanessa's eyes, but for the loyalty that has always bound him to Randy. Marcel, though angered by the disruption, remains composed. He orders his men to crush the resistance, to bring Randy down no matter the cost. Yet beneath his calm exterior, frustration flickers. For the first time, the board does not move as he commands. The pawn resists, the knight refuses capture, and the certainty of victory slips through his fingers. Vanessa, far from the violence, begins to see cracks in her new reality. Joey grows impatient with her hesitations, his temper surfacing in subtle but unmistakable flashes. She realizes, with dawning horror, that she has traded one kind of chaos for another. Doug's flaws were born of weakness, but Joey's are rooted in control, in manipulation. The promises of freedom and security curdle into threats disguised as affection. And in her heart, guilt festers, knowing Doug suffers somewhere while she lies in the arms of the man who delights in his ruin. Back at the battleground, Randy and Doug find themselves cornered. The odds are overwhelming, yet their bond steels them against despair. For the first time in a long time, Doug feels a spark of the man he used to Bennett the gambler, not the drunk, but the friend who would bleed beside the one who never abandoned him. Even as Marcel tightens the noose, even as Joey's shadow looms over Vanessa, Doug clings to that spark. The story reaches a fever pitch where every character stands at the edge of consequence. Marcel believes control is inevitable, yet cracks in his design grow wider. Joey revels in conquest, but his grip on Vanessa begins to loosen as doubt takes root. Vanessa struggles between desire and conscience, her choices threatening to consume her. Randy fights not just for survival but for the friend who, despite his failures, still matters to him. And Doug, broken yet unyielding, faces the choice of whether to remain Marcel's pawn or to reclaim the last shred of dignity left to him. The pieces are set, the players locked into a game where every move is final. Betrayal, loyalty, love, and vengeance collide in a storm that cannot be undone. And as the shadows lengthen, each of them realizes that no matter who emerges standing, the cost of this game will scar them all. Doug and Randy stagger from the chaos of Marcel's trap, battered but alive, their breaths ragged in the cold night air. For a fleeting moment, survival feels like victory. Yet both men know that the storm has not passed, it has only shifted, gathering force for one final collision. Marcel's wrath is not easily contained, and Joey continues to twist the knife. Doug's mind races as he and Randy find refuge in a crumbling warehouse. His body aches from the beatings, but the deeper pain is the knowledge that Vanessa has crossed a line she cannot return from. He envisions her with Joey, the ring abandoned, her vows discarded. Rage claws at him, but so does guilt, because his own weaknesses drove her there. He wonders if redemption is possible, or if he has already gambled away the last chance he had to be the man she needed. Randy studies his friend in the dim light, his eyes sharp but weary. He sees not just the broken shell of a gambler but a man torn between regret and resolve. Randy reminds him that loyalty isn't about perfection, it's about standing when everything else falls apart. Those words strike Doug with unexpected force. For the first time, he begins to understand that survival alone is not enough. To reclaim himself, he must confront both Marcel's cruelty and Joey's betrayal head-on. Meanwhile, Marcel simmers. The botched ambush cuts deeper than any wound, not because of the loss itself but because it exposed weakness. To him, control is everything. Doug and Randy's defiance is an insult he cannot ignore. He begins planning not just to capture them but to obliterate them, to make examples that no one in his world can forget. His orders grow harsher, his men restless, sensing that their leader's calm is cracking. Marcel convinces himself that once Randy falls, Joey's star will rise higher, and Vanessa will be permanently severed from Doug's shadow. Joey, however, grows careless in his triumph. With Vanessa fully in his arms, he drops the veil of tenderness. His words become sharper, laced with condescension. He talks openly of Doug's ruin, sometimes laughing about the man's desperation. At first, Vanessa tries to push away the unease, but soon the weight of it becomes unbearable. She realizes Joey never loved her, loved the conquest, the humiliation of Doug, the control he now wields. A quiet dread fills her as she sees herself not as a partner but as another possession in Joey's collection. The convergence comes when Doug and Randy, tired of running, decide to strike back. They know Marcel will not stop hunting them. They also know Joey is the thread tying Marcel's schemes to Vanessa's betrayal. Doug cannot stomach the thought of leaving matters unfinished. If he is to fall, it must be with defiance, not surrender. The final showdown unfolds in a place Doug knows all too well, the casino where his downfall began. It is Marcel's territory, a den of shadows and debts, the perfect stage for a reckoning. Randy moves with tactical precision, aware that survival depends on exploiting Marcel's arrogance. Doug, though weaker, channels his rage into clarity. Every card table, every flashing light, becomes a reminder of what he has lost and what he must reclaim. When Marcel confronts them, the air thickens with tension. He mocks Doug, calling him a man who gambled away his soul long before he gambled away his money. But Doug, beaten though he is, finds his voice steady. He tells Marcel that loyalty and friendship cannot be bought, cannot be broken by fists or threats. For once, Marcel falters not in fear, but in the recognition that Doug has slipped beyond his control. The clash is brutal, fists and blades, gunfire echoing through the casino's hollow spaces. Randy fights with unyielding resolve, covering Doug at every turn. Doug, though weaker, surprises even himself with the ferocity of his will. It is no longer about winning money or Vanessa's approval, it is about reclaiming dignity in the face of annihilation. Joey appears in the midst of it, dragging Vanessa with him as though she were proof of his victory. His smirk is wide, his confidence absolute. But Vanessa, finally pushed past her breaking point, tears away from him. Her voice cuts through the chaos, trembling but fierce, as she calls Joey what he truly is, a coward who hides behind manipulation. Joey lunges for her, enraged, but in that moment Doug intervenes. The sight of Joey's hands on Vanessa ignites something primal in him. With a surge of strength born from desperation, Doug drives Joey back, the two men colliding in a violent struggle. The outcome is inevitable. Joey, arrogant and reckless, underestimates the fury of a man with nothing left to lose. Doug overpowers him, not with skill but with sheer will, and when Joey falls, his smirk finally erased, the weight of betrayal lifts just slightly from Doug's shoulders. Marcel, witnessing Joey's defeat and his carefully laid plans unraveling, makes one last attempt to seize control. He raises his weapon, intent on ending Doug and Randy in one decisive act. But Randy, ever the loyal shield, intercepts him. The fight is swift, brutal, and ends with Marcel silenced forever, his empire collapsing with him. In the aftermath, silence settles over the casino. Doug stands over Joey's lifeless form, his chest heaving, his knuckles bloodied. Vanessa approaches, her face pale with shock and shame. She whispers his name, but Doug cannot meet her eyes. Too much has been said, too much broken. He knows love cannot be rebuilt on ashes soaked with betrayal. With quiet finality, he turns away. Randy places a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. The two men walk out together, battered survivors of a game that cost them everything but their loyalty. The night air feels different, heavy yet strangely clean, as if the city itself acknowledges the end of something poisonous. Vanessa watches them go, the weight of her choices pressing down on her. She knows Joey's lies lured her, but it was her own hands that removed the ring. She is left alone in the ruins, the silence of the casino echoing with what she gave up. For Doug, the ending is not triumph but clarity. He has lost love, reputation, and nearly his life. But he walks away with one truth intact: he did not betray Randy, and in the end, he faced Joey and Marcel without running. Redemption does not erase the past, but it carves a path forward. Beyond the gates of greed, betrayal, and despair, Doug steps into uncertainty, but for the first time, it is a future he chooses, not one forced upon him. The story closes not with victory but with survival, not with reunion but with resolve. Doug and Randy vanish into the night, scarred yet unbroken, leaving behind a world of shattered illusions. And in that quiet departure, The true gamble is revealed, not the games of chance in the casino, but the wager of loyalty against betrayal, dignity against despair.